Well, over the weekend, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson embarked on a secretly planned trip to Kyiv to tour the streets with Ukrainian President Zelensky. President Zelensky, called on leaders of the Western democracies to follow the example of the United Kingdom. Zelensky also met with the federal chancellor of Austria, whom he praised for visiting Ukraine, adding later that such visits by leaders in European countries is a great signal. Yesterday, when asked whether or not President Biden will visit Kyiv, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan told Meet the Press host Chuck Todd that he currently doesn't have any plans to do so.
President Biden has been to Kyiv before. He looks forward to going to Kyiv again, but we're not currently planning a trip.
Is the Biden administration doing enough to support Ukraine? Here to discuss this and more is U.S. Congressman Mike Johnson. He is a member of the House Armed Services Committee. He is also the vice chair of the House Republican Conference, and he represents the 4th Congressional District of Louisiana. Congressman, welcome back to the program.
Hey, Tony, great to be with you as always.
Well, let's talk about the situation in Ukraine with the Russians unable to advance with their ground forces. They've resorted to bombing many of the urban areas. Thousands have died, but yet the resolve of the Ukrainian people seems to be extremely strong. But they're continuing to look to other countries, as the U.S., for the military materiel they need to be successful. Are we going to be able to provide it?
Well, that's a great question. We hope so. You know, President Biden has delayed deterrence. He's delayed the delivery of lethal aid to the Ukrainians. And it's really interesting, very important, I think, to note. They've put up a heroic effort there, of course. They're not asking for American military boots on the ground there. They're asking for the ability to fight back. As we've seen in recent days, there's a real chance they could win this conflict with Russia, but they will not be able to do that. They certainly can't prevail if the Biden administration continues to sit on its hands and not deliver the weapons that are sorely needed and that we are prepared to provide.
You know, I don't think anybody wants to send U.S. troops into Ukraine, but that does not mean that we don't need a strong military. I mean, our military needs to be prepared to go wherever, whenever, to protect American interest. I mean, it is becoming quite evident that under the Biden administration, America's military's distraction with the social programs and other things that they're pushing makes America look weak on the global stage.
We are projecting weakness on the world stage. There's no question about it. And you and I are fond of Reagan's doctrine of peace through strength. And of course, that's been the history, the tradition of our nation. We maintain the peace through our strength. And even the perception of a weak America creates a danger for free people all around the world. Terrorists and tyrants and leaders like Putin use this as an opportunity. And so that's the dangerous situation we find ourselves in. The White House has failed on every count in that regard, and there are real world consequences for that. We're seeing headlines today that 10,000 civilians have been killed in the latest onslaught by Russia. This is taking a very real toll, and it's encouraging other terrorists and tyrants around the country, China and our other adversaries. So this is a very serious matter. Congress has been weighing in on this since last winter. I mean, we were getting intel, Tony, everybody knows now, as early as November. We knew that this was a reality, that Russia was arming on the border, that they would do this. And the Biden administration has dragged its feet the entire time. It sent exactly the opposite message. And it is a threat to liberty around the world. This is a very, very serious time.
Congressman Johnson, I'm going to switch gears back to domestic issues. Republicans in the House have sent a letter to the Chief Administrative Officer of the House of Representatives. You have been spearheading this effort, urging the office to terminate the House's contract with the banking giant CitiGroup. Tell us what that's about.
Well, we want them to immediately terminate the contract with CitiGroup. They are the financial institution that has the exclusive contract to handle all of House offices. We use those credit cards, every House office does, to fund travel and office supplies and all of the various expenses that are needed on a daily operation of our offices. Citi has the entire, the monopoly on that on that enterprise. But here's the problem: they sent a letter to their shareholders in advance of their April stakeholder meeting, and they boasted about how they would fund the travel of CitiGroup employees to travel to obtain abortions across state lines. They would circumvent effectively the rules, the laws in states like mine in Louisiana and other pro-life states, and they would send employees and they would pay for it. So that's a real problem for us. As everyone knows, the legislative branch of the United States government, the federal government, has long held to hide protections and or other policy riders that prevent the use of taxpayer dollars, not even a cent, on the provision or the paying for the expenses of an abortion. So this flies right in the face, the spirit of our policies, the letter of the law, and we think they have forfeited, I think, Tony, the right to do business with the House of Representatives.
And it sounds as if they could even be violating laws in states like Texas where they are pledging to do this.
Well, that's exactly right. And, this already happens in our corner of the world. Louisiana is a very pro-life state, but to use us as an example, my largest city in my district is Shreveport, Louisiana, situated in the northwest corner of the state. It's the largest abortion center in the state, even greater numbers than New Orleans and Baton Rouge, which are larger cities, because persons are transported here from outlying areas. And so you'll have cities like that and situations like that. If the Dobbs case comes down, as many of us expect, and we have a change and the decision to abortion reverts to the states where it has always belonged, you'll have 100% pro-life states. And this looks to us as if CitiGroup is trying to get out in front of that and send a wink and a nod, this woke corporate stuff that they're doing, to tell everyone, hey, don't worry about it. We'll transport them into pro-abortion states and take care of it for you. We're not going to be a part of that. The House of Representatives should not be a party to this in any way. And if our credit cards fund that in any way, we need to back out of it. And we're going to demand that. I had 45 of my colleagues sign on to a letter demanding this action, Tony, and we'll see what happens.
Congressman Johnson, as we are seeing more and more blatant advocacy by corporate America backing up, supporting, advocating the left's social policies, but historically they've looked to Republicans, conservatives, for favorable tax and regulatory policy. Is a day of reckoning coming for corporate America?
I think that is certainly a true statement. Look, there is a great concern, alarm even amongst my colleagues. We're expecting a big red wave election in November, as everyone, all the pollsters right, left, and center all agree now will happen. And when it does, we will be doing a full-scale review of all these kinds of things. I think corporate America has taken all of us for granted. They've taken conservatives for granted. They've taken the grassroots for granted. And I think those days are numbered. People are wising up to this. They see what's happening, and they don't want any part of it. And so I think there's going to be a backlash. I think on the political wave, I think you'll see that in November, but I think you'll see the reverberation of this throughout the culture for some time to come, and it could not happen soon enough.
Well, I think with Governor DeSantis and Governor Kemp in Georgia all standing up to corporate America when they oppose their policies, whether it be election reform or whether it be parental rights, I think it's a new era in politics. And I think corporate America should tell them, hey, sit down with the squad and work out your tax policy. If you want to push their social agenda, sit down with them and let them work on your tax policy.
That's exactly right. And, we've been so encouraged to see that kind of leadership in Florida and Texas and other states. And when leaders show backbone, it inspires backbone in others. And I think that out in the grassroots, I know my constituents, the people that I represent, Tony, I mean, this is kind of a microcosm of the whole country here in North and West Louisiana. They've had enough. They are tired of being taken advantage of. They are tired of these elitists in these corporate boardrooms, abusing their privileges, so to speak. And so people are going to begin to use and walk with their money. I love the backlash against Disney with all their new woke culture nonsense that they've announced. We have neighbors who have canceled trips here in the last couple of weeks. There'll be more and more of that. And I think that'll get the attention of corporate America. I certainly hope so.
And it helps when we have leaders like yourself, Governor DeSantis, Governor Kemp, and others who are stepping out and taking these corporate giants on toe-to-toe. And thanks for taking on CitiGroup and their advocacy for abortion. Always great to see you, Mike. Thanks so much for being with us.
You too, Tony. Thanks so much. Keep up great work.
All right, folks.